In 1945, as Japan stood on the brink of defeat, over $100 billion in gold looted from 12 Asian nations vanished beneath the jungles of the Philippines. Official history says the treasure was lost forever. But decades of declassified documents, unexplained billions in secret accounts, and legal battles reveal a darker reality. The wealth didn't disappear. It moved into the hands of new masters. The real story of how the greatest theft in history spawned an even greater cover-up begins with the vaults that still lie buried, and the evidence hidden in plain sight. In 1937, as Japanese troops marched into China, a new kind of operation began, one that moved alongside the armies but left no battlefield behind. Teams of experts, accountants, and soldiers fanned out across 12 Asian countries: China, Korea, Indochina, Malaya, Singapore, the Dutch East Indies, the Philippines, Burma, Hong Kong, Guam, Thailand, and Manchuria. Their orders were simple: strip everything of value. Banks were emptied at gunpoint. In Manila alone, $15 million vanished from vaults in 1942. Temples lost gold Buddhas. Centuries-old statues melted down into ingots. Private citizens handed over jewelry and heirlooms under threat of death. Cultural treasures, rare coins, and currencies, nothing was spared. This was not random looting. It was industrial plunder on a scale the world had never seen, run with military precision. At the center stood Prince Yasuhito Chichibu, Emperor Hirohito's brother. According to post-war researchers, he oversaw what the Japanese called the Golden Lily operation, named for a line from an imperial poem. Under his supervision, the loot was cataloged, crated, and moved by rail, truck, and ship. Convoys moved under cover of darkness. Ships like the Huzi Maru, disguised as hospital vessels, slipped through Allied blockades carrying tons of gold and gems. Some shipments went straight to Japan. Others were rerouted as the war shifted, piling up in regional hubs like Singapore and Manila. Every stage was documented. Shipping manifests listed crates by weight, not content. Japanese officers signed off on deliveries, and trusted engineers built secret storage tunnels. The sheer volume defied imagination. Historians estimate the total value of Japanese wartime looting at between $100 billion and $300 billion in today's money. Gold was melted to erase its origins, stamped with new marks, and packed for transport. Artifacts disappeared from museums and private collections, their histories wiped clean in a matter of days. The operation's reach was global, but its heart lay in the Pacific. As the Allies advanced and Japan's defeat loomed, the problem became one of concealment: how to hide a fortune so vast it could destabilize economies and topple governments. The answer would soon reshape the fate of the Philippines and leave questions that still echo through courtrooms and classified files. By 1943, the Japanese High Command faced a new threat. American submarines prowled the Pacific, sinking ship after ship. The sea routes that once carried treasure toward Japan had become killing zones. With the risk of losing everything to Allied interception, a drastic order went out: move the loot underground. The Philippines, especially the island of Luzon, became the last vault for an empire's stolen wealth. General Tomoyuki Yamashita, known as the Tiger of Malaya, took charge of the defense and the concealment. Under his command, teams of engineers, forced laborers, and military police began the work. They carved elaborate tunnel systems into mountainsides and beneath forests. Some chambers stretched for hundreds of meters, reinforced with concrete, lined with steel doors, and hidden behind false walls. Others were deep caves, accessible only through narrow shafts or underwater entrances. Every site was designed to be invisible to the untrained eye. The operation was ruthless. Booby traps were built into the architecture, pressure plates wired to explosives, sealed tunnels rigged to flood with gas or water, and false floors that gave way to pits. In some cases, entire work crews disappeared once a vault was sealed, silenced to protect the secret. The number of burial sites grew rapidly. By the time American forces closed in on Luzon, more than 175 separate locations had been prepared. Each was marked on coded maps, often drawn in archaic Japanese script or disguised as landscape sketches. Some maps were rumored to be tattooed onto the backs of trusted officers or hidden inside hollowed-out artifacts. Historians and treasure hunters have argued over exact details for decades. What is certain is the scale. Luzon became a labyrinth of hidden chambers, each one a potential time capsule of war loot. Japanese records confirm the construction of extensive tunnel networks, but the true purpose of many sites remains buried in legend. The few surviving blueprints and maps are fragmentary, passed down or traded in secret. References to a U.S. Army map series, sometimes called SWPA Luzon, 175 surface in conspiracy circles, but no authenticated copy has ever been found in public archives. By September 1945, the war was over. Yamashita surrendered, was tried for war crimes, and was executed the following year. He never revealed the burial sites. The gold, silver, and artifacts vanished into the Philippine soil, locked behind steel, concrete, and secrets. The fate of this fortune would soon become the subject of rumors, lawsuits, and covert operations, fueling a mystery that still haunts the jungles and mountains of Luzon. Edward Lansdale arrived in the Philippines as the war ended, carrying orders that went far beyond the usual mission of a psychological warfare officer. His name appears in OSS logs and post-war intelligence files, but it is the stories whispered by guerrilla fighters and local drivers that fill in the details left out of official reports. According to multiple witnesses, the first American recovery efforts began in late 1945, just weeks after the Japanese surrender. Night after night, military trucks rolled out from makeshift camps on the outskirts of Manila, heading north into the mountains and forests of Luzon. The convoys traveled with their headlights off, guarded by armed escorts and shielded by layers of secrecy. Some drivers later described hauling heavy, sealed crates from tunnel mouths and jungle clearings. The cargo was always the same, unmarked but so dense that it took teams of soldiers to load each box. Lansdale's role, according to these accounts, was hands-on. He coordinated with Filipino guerrillas who had mapped Japanese defensive works during the occupation. Testimony from a former guerrilla, John Ballinger, describes Lansdale interrogating captured Japanese engineers and even Yamashita's former driver, Major Kojima Kashi, to pinpoint the location of concealed vaults. Once a site was identified, engineers would break open sealed chambers, sometimes finding skeletons alongside the loot. The operation moved quickly, always at night, always under tight security. Guerrilla records and local testimonies mention convoys moving through Teresa, Montalban, and the Baguio region, each run timed to avoid both local curiosity and the attention of other Allied units. These runs were nights of controlled movement designed to keep discovery to a minimum and operations to a maximum. OSS logs from this period are sparse, but they confirm a surge in field operations across Luzon in late 1945 and early 1946. Reports note unexplained shipments and the presence of American officers in regions far from major demobilization centers. Some local witnesses recall seeing convoys of 6 or 8 trucks at a time, each one covered and flanked by jeeps. The cargo was transferred at military airfields or loaded onto ships bound for the United States. In several cases, Filipino drivers were paid in gold coins or bars, then sworn to silence. No official record lists what was recovered or where it went. The only clues are scattered in after-action reports and the memories of men who risked their lives in the jungles and on mountain roads. Lansdale himself never wrote publicly about these missions. Yet the pattern is systematic. A coordinated effort to locate, extract, and remove vast quantities of treasure buried by the Japanese, using intelligence, secrecy, and a network of local operatives. The mechanics of the operation, night convoys, coded maps, sealed crates, suggest a level of planning that goes far beyond a simple treasure hunt. Instead, it looks like the first phase of a much larger campaign, one that would soon leave traces in banks and ledgers across the world. The evidence, when assembled, was unmistakably clear. Severino Garcia, Santa Romana's name rarely appeared in official reports, but his financial footprint stretched across continents. After the war, Santa Romana, known to friends as Santi, began opening accounts in banks from Zurich to Hong Kong, Geneva to New York. By the 1950s, investigators later traced more than 40 banks holding deposits under his name or under a string of aliases. The sums involved were staggering. Billions of dollars, sometimes in gold-backed certificates, sometimes in bearer bonds or anonymous numbered accounts. No visible business, inheritance, or trade could explain these balances. When Santa Romana died in 1974, his widow and legal heirs discovered a maze of probate filings in the Philippines and Switzerland. Docket numbers from Manila courts listed assets frozen in major international banks. Letters from Swiss institutions acknowledged the existence of accounts but refused to release funds, citing secrecy laws and questions about the origins of the deposits. Bank investigators hired by the estate produced correspondence confirming that the accounts were real and that the money had been untouched for years. In some cases, the banks themselves admitted that the source of the funds could not be traced to any legitimate commercial activity. The amounts, sometimes listed as hundreds of millions in a single account, defied explanation. These findings were confirmed in written records and in bank responses. In 1992, a declassified CIA memorandum surfaced referencing recovered enemy assets in the Philippines. The document did not name Santa Romana directly, but it described a network of post-war accounts and unexplained gold movements that matched the pattern uncovered in court filings. The phrase recovered enemy assets echoed through congressional hearings and investigative reports, always shrouded in redactions and missing pages. The document fragments matched bank records and probate dockets. The official story insisted that no significant treasure was ever found. Yet the probate dockets, bank confirmations, and the CIA's own language told a different story, a story of money that appeared out of nowhere and vanished into the global banking system. The Santa Romana accounts became a quantitative anchor, a hard data point that could not be dismissed as rumor or legend. Billions in frozen assets, scattered across more than 40 banks, with no plausible origin. The numbers did not match any known business, inheritance, or legal windfall. They matched only the scale of missing treasure from a war that had supposedly left nothing behind. The word evidence here is literal and material. As legal battles dragged on for decades, and as banks continued to stonewall heirs and investigators, the evidence piled up. The financial trail left by Santa Romana linked the physical recovery of gold to a global web of secret accounts. It provided the first hard numbers in a story often clouded by myth, a story that would soon collide with courtroom testimony and legal judgments, forcing the question, if this money was not the missing gold, then what was it? In April 1971, Roger Roxas, a locksmith from Baguio, entered a hidden tunnel with a team of workers and uncovered a discovery that would shake the Philippines for decades. Inside the chamber, they discovered a golden Buddha weighing over 1,000 pounds and several boxes stamped with Japanese characters, each filled with gold bars. Roxas brought the Buddha home, its base packed with uncut diamonds. News of the discovery spread quickly, and within days, soldiers loyal to President Ferdinand Marcos stormed his house. The statue and the gold vanished into government custody. Roxas was arrested, beaten, and held without trial. His family reported threats and surveillance. The treasure, once in his hands, was now in the possession of the most powerful man in the country. The legal battle that followed reached far beyond the Philippines. After Marcos fled into exile, Roxas's estate filed suit in Hawaii. In 1996, a U.S. court found the Marcos estate liable for the theft, awarding the Roxas family a staggering $22 billion. The judgment was later reduced on appeal, but the finding stood: Marcos had seized treasure linked to the wartime loot. During hearings, Imelda Marcos admitted under oath that her husband had found and kept gold from Japanese sites. Asset tracing by the Philippine government's Presidential Commission on Good Government revealed Swiss accounts holding $5 to $10 billion, funds with no clear origin, far beyond any official salary. The Roxas case did more than expose a dictator's greed. It provided legal proof that Yamashita's treasure was not just legend. It could be found, seized, and traced through court records and bank ledgers. For the first time, the story of lost gold was anchored in a verdict, not just rumor. The numbers tell a story that official statements never address. Historians put the value of Japan's wartime looting at between $100 billion and $300 billion in today's terms. The gold, silver, and rare artifacts stripped from 12 countries vanished into secret tunnels and jungle vaults. Decades later, legal cases like Roger Roxas's proved that at least some of this treasure was real, findable, and worth billions. Marcos's fortune, billions in Swiss accounts, stood as another data point. But even if every Marcos bank account, every Santa Romana deposit, and every confirmed find were added together, the total falls far short of the original haul. Here, the numbers create a gap too large to ignore. The missing billions, possibly hundreds of billions, have no official explanation. Government records deny any large-scale recovery. Yet court judgments, bank confirmations, and declassified CIA documents referencing recovered enemy assets suggest otherwise. The financial math simply does not add up unless a massive, hidden recovery took place. This is where the Black Eagle Trust theory enters the picture. The idea is simple, if staggering. The United States quietly recovered much of the looted gold and used it to create a secret fund, a slush fund outside any budget and beyond congressional oversight. That fund, allegedly merged with Nazi gold and managed under names like the M Fund or Black Eagle Trust, would bankroll covert operations across the globe. Cold War coups, bribes, and black operations were all fueled by treasure that officially never existed. There are no public ledgers, no official audits, and no admissions. Only a trail of unexplained wealth, classified files, and spending patterns that do not match any known source. The scale of the missing gold, the legal proofs of its existence, and the persistent rumors of secret funding leave behind a financial mystery that refuses to close. Today, the gold remains unreturned, the documents sealed, and the victims uncompensated. As official silence persists, the legacy of hidden wealth still shapes global power in ways most will never see. The real treasure isn't just gold, it is the truth, locked away by those who profit from secrecy. Some wounds don't heal until history is finally admitted. Admission is overdue.